The bar was in my hands. The music was loud. My mind was finally quiet. Then the front doors opened, and the room changed. Two officers walked in like they already knew who I was. Behind them, my sister smiled like she had been rehearsing this moment all week. She did not come to report a crime. She came to erase me. My name is Holly James, and for the last 3 years, 5 in the morning has been the only time of day that belongs entirely to me. The gym at this hour is a sanctuary of gray iron and cold rubber. It smells of stale chalk and hard work, a scent that clears my head better than any coffee ever could. There are no emails demanding my attention, no family group chats blowing up with passive-aggressive guilt trips, and certainly no Tessa. Here, gravity is the only law, and it is a fair judge. If you put in the work, the weight moves. If you do not, it stays on the floor. It is simple. It is honest. My life outside these walls has been neither of those things lately, so I cling to the steel of the barbell like a lifeline. I was midway through my 3rd set of deadlifts. My hands were wrapped around the knurling of the bar, my shins touching the metal. I took a deep breath, bracing my core, pushing the floor away with my heels. The weight rose, a heavy grounding pressure that made every other worry in my life vanish into the background noise of the stereo system. I locked it out, held it for a beat, and controlled the descent. Clang. The sound of plates hitting the platform was usually the loudest thing in the room, but then the air changed. It is strange how you can feel a shift in the atmosphere before you see it. The ambient noise of the gym, the rhythmic clanking of weights, the hum of treadmills, and the low murmurs of the morning regulars just evaporated. It did not fade out gradually. It was cut, like someone had severed the power cord to the room's energy. I stood up, wiping my chalked hands on my leggings, and looked toward the entrance. The front desk staff, usually a pair of sleepy college students who waved me in with a smile, were standing rigid. Their eyes were wide, darting between the door and the workout floor. The heavy glass doors were held open, and the morning light from the parking lot spilled in, harsh and blinding. 2 police officers walked in. They did not look like they were responding to a noise complaint or asking for a membership discount. They walked with the heavy, purposeful stride of people who are looking for a threat. Their hands were near their belts, not resting, but ready. Their eyes scanned the room, bypassing the cardio machines, ignoring the free weight section, and locking onto the lifting platforms in the back, locking onto me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sudden, violent rhythm that had nothing to do with the exercise I had just finished. I felt a cold flush of adrenaline wash over me. I ran a mental inventory of my last 24 hours. Had I run a red light? Had I forgotten to pay a ticket? Then, the second figure stepped out from behind the wall of blue uniforms, and the mystery dissolved into a sick, sinking feeling in my gut. It was my sister. It was Tessa. She followed half a step behind the officers, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her face was a mask of tragedy. Her eyes were wide and shimmering, her mouth set in a thin, trembling line. To anyone else, she looked like a woman on the edge of a breakdown, seeking safety. But I have known that face for 26 years. I have seen that face in the reflection of mirrors before she ruined my birthday parties. I have seen that face across the dinner table right before she accused me of stealing money she had actually spent on clothes. This was not fear. This was performance art. She was wearing her victim cardigan, the oversized beige one she pulls out whenever she needs to look small and defenseless. She scanned the room until her gaze met mine. For a fraction of a second, the trembling lip vanished, replaced by a cold, triumphant glint. She raised a shaking hand and pointed a manicured finger directly at my chest. "That is her," she said. Her voice was loud, pitching up at the end to ensure it carried to the back of the room. "That is Holly. That is the one who did it." The reaction was instantaneous. The gym, usually a place of privacy and focus, turned into a stage. I saw phones come out, the regulars, people I nodded to every morning, people who knew exactly how much I could squat but nothing about my life, were suddenly an audience. The little red recording lights blinked on. They were filming. Of course they were filming. A police raid at an upscale gym is content. A woman being accused by her crying sister is viral gold. The taller officer, a man with graying hair and a nameplate that read O'Malley, stepped forward. He did not shout. He did not draw a weapon. But his focus on me was absolute. "Ma'am, step away from the weights," he said. It was a command, not a request. I took a breath. My instinct was to argue, to scream, to ask what the hell was happening, but I looked at Tessa. She was watching me, waiting for the explosion. She wanted me to yell. She wanted me to throw a fit. If I screamed, I was the unstable sister. If I resisted, I was the dangerous threat. I unclasped my lifting belt. The Velcro sound ripped through the silence like a gunshot. I let it drop to the floor. "I am coming over," I said. My voice sounded deeper than usual. Steady. I did not wait for them to come to me. I did not want to be escorted across the gym floor with a hand on my arm like a criminal. I walked toward them. I kept my chin up. I made eye contact with the officer, ignoring the phones, ignoring the whispers that were starting to hiss like steam escaping a pipe. "Did you see that? Is that her sister? What did she do?" I walked until I was 5 feet away from the front desk, placing myself between the officers and the exit, but clearly submitting to their authority. "Officer," I said, "I am Holly James. Can you tell me what is going on?" Officer O'Malley looked at me, assessing. He seemed surprised that I wasn't crying or screaming. He held a tablet in his hand, the screen glowing with a dense block of text. "Ms. James, we have received a complaint filed against you regarding significant financial fraud, identity theft, and an immediate physical threat to the reporting party." The words landed like physical blows. Fraud, identity theft, threat, behind him. Tessa sniffed loudly. She wiped a tear that I was 90% sure she had forced out by holding her eyes open too long. "She said she was going to ruin me," Tessa whispered to the younger officer, a rookie who looked ready to tackle me if I so much as sneezed. "She said if I went to the police, she would hurt me. That is why I had to come find you guys. I knew she was here. She stalks me." The lie was so massive, so audacious, that it almost took my breath away. I have not spoken to Tessa in 3 months. I have blocked her number. I have blocked her socials. I come to this gym specifically because she hates sweating and thinks lifting weights makes women look bulky. I looked at the tablet in the officer's hand. I needed to think. I needed to bypass the emotion and get to the data. Tessa thrives in the gray area of feelings, and he said she said. She cannot survive in the black and white world of facts. I looked at Officer O'Malley. "Am I under arrest?" I asked. "Not at this moment." He said, "But we need to take a statement, and given the nature of the threats reported, we cannot allow you to leave freely until we sort this out." I nodded. "Okay, I understand." I took a half step closer to the desk, turning my body so I was facing the officer, but could still see the gym's computer monitors in my peripheral vision. "Officer," I said, keeping my voice low and level, "you said there was a report filed. A complaint involving a physical threat." "Yes, ma'am." He said, "I need to know one thing." I said, "What time was the report filed?" Tessa stepped forward, her voice rising. "Why does that matter? She is trying to confuse you. She is a manipulator. She does this all the time. She twists things." The officer held up a hand to silence her. He looked down at the tablet. He scrolled a thumb over the glass. "The digital file was created and submitted at 6:14 p.m., he said. He corrected himself, looking at the timestamp more closely. "Sorry, 6:14 in the evening, today. Or rather, yesterday evening." My brain clicked into gear. 6:14 in the evening. I looked at the officer. 6:14, I repeated. "And the report states that I made these threats and committed these acts of theft immediately prior to the report being filed? That I was in the presence of the reporting party?" The officer nodded slowly. "The report alleges a confrontation at the residence of the victim at 6:10 in the evening, leading to the call." Tessa looked fast. "I meant earlier." She said quickly, "I got the times mixed up. I was so scared. I did not look at the clock. But it was too late. She had already committed to the narrative in the report." I turned to the girl at the front desk. Her name was Sarah. She was holding a protein shaker and looking terrified. "Sarah," I said, "can you please pull up my check-in logs for yesterday evening?" Tessa scoffed. "This is ridiculous. She is wasting your time. Just arrest her." Officer O'Malley looked at Tessa, then back at me. He was an experienced cop. He knew the difference between a panicked victim and someone trying to direct a movie. He nodded at Sarah. "Pull it up," he said. Sarah's fingers flew across the keyboard. The mechanical clicking was the only sound in the room. "Ms. James checked in yesterday at 6:07 in the evening." Sarah said. I felt a surge of cold validation. "And when did I check out?" I asked. Sarah scrolled. "You did not check out until 8:30 in the evening." I turned back to the officer. "Officer," I said, "I was inside this building, under high-definition surveillance, lifting weights, from 6:07 until 8:30. I have a GPS tracker on my wrist that records my heart rate and location. I could not have been at my sister's house threatening her at 6:10. I was on the rowing machine." Tessa's face flushed a blotchy red. She stepped closer to the officer, grabbing his sleeve. She could have left. She could have snuck out the back door and came back. She is obsessed. She would do that just to have an alibi. I looked at the cameras mounted in the corners of the ceiling. "Officer," I said, "ask the gym to play the footage." The room went silent again. The logic was tightening around Tessa's throat, and she knew it. Officer O'Malley looked at the gym manager, who had just emerged from the back office. "Can we see the door camera feeds from 6 o'clock to 6:15 yesterday?" O'Malley asked. The manager nodded and turned the monitor so the officers could see. I watched the screen over O'Malley's shoulder. There I was. The timestamp read 6:07. I walked in, scanned my fob, and waved to Sarah. The manager scrubbed the video forward. 6:10. I was on the rower. Visible. Clear as day. 6:12. Still rowing. 6:14. The exact minute the report was filed claiming I was screaming threats at Tessa's house 5 miles away. I was drinking water and adjusting my headphones. Officer O'Malley watched the screen for a long moment. He watched the digital seconds tick by on the footage. He watched the undeniable proof that I was nowhere near my sister. He straightened up and turned slowly to look at Tessa. The shift in his demeanor was subtle but tectonic. The protectiveness was gone. The sympathy was evaporating. "Ma'am," he said to Tessa. His voice was flatter now, harder. "You said you were in immediate danger at 6:14. You said she was in your house." Tessa stammered. I might have gotten the day wrong. It has been a blur. I have been so traumatized." The rookie officer spoke up for the first time. He was looking at his own device. "Ma'am, the report was filed from a mobile device. The geolocation on the metadata shows the device was pinging from a cell tower 2 blocks from this gym at 6:14, not your residence." The silence that followed that statement was heavy enough to crush bone. Tessa had not just lied about where I was. She had lied about where she was. She had followed me here yesterday, sat in the parking lot, and filed a police report claiming I was attacking her, all while I was safely inside. And then she waited until this morning, until the gym was quiet, until she could make an entrance, to bring the police to find me. This was not a tantrum. This was not a sisterly spat. I looked at Tessa, really looked at her. Her eyes were darting around, looking for a new angle, a new lie to spin. She did not look crazy. She looked calculating. She had planned this. She had drafted the report. She had timed it. She had rehearsed the scene. She wanted me arrested at work hours. She wanted me humiliated. She wanted a police record attached to my name that would trigger flags in my background checks. This was a hit. And as Officer O'Malley turned back to me, his face confused and wary, I realized something else. If she was willing to go this far, if she was willing to fabricate a felony in front of law enforcement, she wasn't working alone. Tessa is vicious, but she isn't detailed. She is messy. The timestamps, the specific legal language in the report about identity theft, that wasn't her. Someone helped her write this script. Officer O'Malley looked at me. "Ms. James, I am going to need to see your identification, and we are going to need to clear this up at the station." Tessa let out a small, satisfied breath. Even with her lie exposed, She knew the procedure. She knew that as long as there was an open report, I had to be processed. She had bought herself time. I looked at her. Dad is not going to let you win. She hissed under her breath as the officer turned to grab his radio. I didn't flinch. I didn't respond. I just stored the sentence away in the back of my mind, right next to the timestamp and the video footage. I realized then that the gym wasn't my sanctuary anymore. It was a crime scene, and I was going to have to be my own detective. The silence that followed the security footage was heavy, the kind of silence that usually precedes a verdict in a courtroom. The monitor sat on the front desk, a black rectangle that had just displayed my innocence in high-definition grayscale. I stood with my arms loose at my sides, letting the adrenaline cool into a sharp, crystalline focus. I did not gloat. I did not point at the screen and scream, "I told you so." In a situation like this, silence is the loudest weapon you have. It forces the other person to fill the void, and liars always fill the void with mistakes. Tessa looked at the screen, then at Officer O'Malley, and then she made the mistake I knew was coming. She tried to negotiate with reality. She let out a short, incredulous laugh, the sound brittle and entirely lacking in genuine humor. "Well, obviously the cameras have blind spots," she said, gesturing vaguely at the ceiling. "The gym is huge. She could have slipped out the back fire exit, driven to my house, terrorized me, and slipped back in before anyone noticed. You know how she is. She is obsessed with fitness. She probably ran the whole way just to keep her heart rate up. It was a pivot. It was a desperate, flailing attempt to rewrite the physics of time and space to fit her narrative. I did not look at her. I looked at the officer. "Officer," I said, keeping my voice pitched low, strictly for him and the rookie. If I opened a fire exit, the alarm would have tripped. The gym logs every breach of the perimeter, but if you need more than the building's passive security, I can give you my personal data. I reached for my phone, which was sitting on the counter next to my water bottle. I unlocked it and opened my workout tracking application. It is a premium app, one that syncs with the band on my wrist to record not just location, but biometric exertion. I tapped the History tab and turned the screen toward O'Malley. I started my session at 6:07 in the evening. I said, tracing the line on the graph with my index finger, I pointed to the first spike in the red graph. "This is my warm-up. Heart rate 110 beats per minute. Time, 6:12 in the evening." I scrolled down. "This is my first working set of squats. Heart rate 145 beats per minute. Time, 6:22 in the evening." I looked O'Malley in the eye. "You can see the rest periods. They are exactly 90 seconds long. I did not leave the floor. I did not get in a car. I did not drive 5 miles to my sister's house. Unless I can telepathically project a hologram of myself to scream at her while I am physically squatting 200 pounds, her timeline is impossible." O'Malley took the phone from my hand. He didn't just glance at it. He studied it. He scrolled through the sets, looking at the metadata of my physical existence. In the modern world, we leave digital footprints everywhere, and for the first time in my life, I was grateful for the surveillance state, my obsession with tracking my progress, usually a point of mockery for my family, was now my ironclad alibi, the rookie officer, who had been quiet until now. Stepped closer to look at the screen over O'Malley's shoulder. "That is continuous data," the rookie said. "No gaps. If she took the watch off, the heart rate sensor would flatline. It varies consistent with heavy exertion." Tessa realized she was losing the room. The patrons who had been filming were now lowering their phones. Sensing that the drama was shifting from a scandalous arrest to a humiliating false report, she crossed her arms tighter, hugging her own ribs as if she were cold. "She has 2 phones," Tessa blurted out. "She probably gave the watch to someone else. She probably paid someone to wear it and work out for her so she could come harass me. She is calculated like that. You do not know her. She is a psychopath." Officer O'Malley lowered my phone and handed it back to me. His face had hardened, the sympathy that had been there when he first walked in. The natural instinct to protect a crying woman was gone. It was replaced by the dull, flat irritation of a professional whose time is being wasted. "Ma'am, O'Malley said to Tessa. "I need to see your identification." Tessa blinked. "Why?" "I am the victim here. Standard procedure," he said. "We need to verify the details of the reporting party against the system. Driver's license. Please." Tessa hesitated. It was a fraction of a second. But I saw it. She dug into her oversized designer bag, shuffling through receipts and lip glosses before producing her license. She handed it over with a trembling hand. But the tremble looked less like fear now and more like rage. O'Malley held the card up, comparing it to the data on his tablet. He frowned. He tapped the screen, then looked back at the card. "Ma'am, the report filed yesterday lists the victim's name as Tessa Marie James." Tessa nodded quickly. "Yes, that is me." O'Malley turned the license so she could see it. "Your license says Tessa Lynn James." The air in the gym seemed to drop 10 degrees. It was a small detail, a middle name, in a casual conversation. It means nothing. In a police report, it is an identifier. It is a data point. Tessa's face flushed a deep, ugly red. I use Marie sometimes. It is my confirmation name. I was so upset when I filed the report. I must have just written the wrong one." O'Malley looked at her. "You wrote the wrong middle name? On a legal document alleging a felony?" "I was scared," she snapped. "I was shaking. Does it matter? I am standing right here. I am Tessa James." The rookie officer looked up from his own tablet. He had been running a background check on the report's metadata. "It matters because the system flags aliases," the rookie said. "And there is something else." He turned the tablet toward O'Malley. "The report was filed via a mobile interface associated with your cellular plan," the rookie continued. "But the geolocation tag at the moment of submission was not at your residence." Tessa froze. The report was filed at 6:14 in the evening. The rookie read from the screen. The device ping came from a tower sector that covers this shopping center, specifically, the north side parking lot. I felt a cold smile touch the inside of my mind, though I kept my face blank. She hadn't been at home being terrorized. She had been sitting in her car, 50 yards from where I was lifting weights, typing out a lie on her phone. She had been watching the gym entrance, waiting to see if I would leave. And when I didn't, she decided to file the report anyway. She manufactured a crime scene from the comfort of her leather seats. "So," O'Malley said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming very slow and very distinct. "You were not at home. You were here." Tessa opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked at the door, then back at the officers. "I came to check if she was here," she cried out. Finding a new footing, I drove here to see if she was stalking me, and when I saw her car, I panicked and filed the report because I knew she was going to come for me eventually. It was a preemptive measure. Preemptive measure, I repeated quietly. O'Malley ignored her outburst. He turned to Sarah, the girl at the front desk who was still standing guard over the computer like it was the Holy Grail. "Miss," O'Malley said, "did the reporting party, Ms. Tessa James, check into the facility today? Did she swipe a card or use an app to enter?" Sarah shook her head. "No, sir." She looked at Tessa, her eyes narrowing. "She walked in right behind you guys," Sarah said. "She used your entry to bypass the gate. She does not have an active membership here. We canceled it 6 months ago for non-payment." I almost laughed. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop it. Of course her membership was canceled. Tessa believes bills are suggestions, and that consequences are for other people, so she is trespassing. I said, "It was not a question. I stated it as a fact." O'Malley looked at Tessa. "Ma'am, you are going to step aside. You are going to stand over there by the wall, and you are going to wait until I tell you to move. We are done with the theatrics." Tessa looked at him, shocked. She had expected to be the princess in this tower. She had expected the police to be her knights. Instead, she was being told to stand in the corner like a truant schoolgirl. "But she is the one who stole from me," Tessa shrieked, pointing at me again. "She stole my identity. That is why I am here." "We are going to sort out the identity theft allegations," O'Malley said. "But right now, the only discrepancies I am seeing are coming from you. Step aside, now." He pointed to a spot on the wall away from the weights, away from the exit, and away from me. Tessa stood her ground for 1 second, her eyes blazing with a mixture of humiliation and fury. She looked around the gym. The phones were still up. But now the narrative had flipped. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was the Karen. She was the crazy sister. She could feel the judgment radiating from the cardio deck. She let out a huff of air, spun on her heel, and marched toward the spot O'Malley had indicated. As she passed me, she slowed down. She did not stop, but she leaned in just enough for her voice to cut through the ambient noise of the gym, low and venomous. "Dad is not going to let you win," she hissed. It wasn't a threat of physical violence. It was a promise of bureaucracy. It was a reminder of the hierarchy that had ruled my life since I was a child. Dad fixes things. Dad crushes the opposition. Dad rewrites history. I did not flinch. I did not blink. I stared straight ahead at the row of dumbbells on the rack, letting her words hit me and slide off like water on oil. I stored it. I filed it away in the same mental folder where I kept the timestamps, the heart rate data, and the image of her fake tears. Dad might try. I thought, but Dad isn't here, and for the first time, I have the receipts. O'Malley turned back to me. "Ms. James," he said. His tone was professional now, almost apologetic, but still guarded, given the conflicting statements and the nature of the allegations. Fraud and identity theft are federal-level issues if the amounts are high enough. We cannot resolve this here. I need you to come to the station so we can take a formal statement and clear this up. I nodded. I knew this was coming. You don't just walk away from a felony report, even a fake one, with a handshake. "Am I being detained?" I asked. "Investigative detention," he said. "Not arrest, but we need to separate you two and get this on the record." "I will drive myself," I said. He shook his head. "I cannot let you do that. Procedure. You will ride with us." I looked at my gym bag. I looked at the barbell still loaded with my deadlift weight. I would have to leave it. I hated leaving a bar loaded. It was bad etiquette, but I had bigger problems. "I need to get my things." I said. "Go ahead," O'Malley said, "but keep it quick." I walked over to the bench. I picked up my belt. I picked up my bag. I put my phone in my pocket. I checked the screen one last time. 6:32 in the morning. My day was supposed to be just beginning. I was supposed to shower, go to the office, and close the merger deal I had been working on for 6 months. Instead, I was going to a police station with my sister who had just framed me for a crime I didn't commit, based on a script she didn't write. I looked over at Tessa. She was typing furiously on her phone. She wasn't texting a friend. She wasn't posting on social media. She was updating headquarters. She was telling Dad that the ambush had failed, and they needed a plan B. I slung my bag over my shoulder and walked back to O'Malley. "I am ready," I said. He nodded and gestured toward the door. "Tessa, let's go," the rookie called out. We walked out of the gym in a single file line. The cool morning air hit my face, drying the sweat on my forehead. The parking lot was bright. The world looked normal. Cars were driving by. People were drinking coffee. But my world had just tilted on its axis. As I climbed into the back of the cruiser, the hard plastic seat uncomfortable against my legs, I realized that the timeline trap wasn't just about the gym. They had tried to trap me in a moment where I looked guilty. They failed. But as the door slammed shut, sealing me inside with the smell of stale sanitizer and old vinyl, I knew the real trap was just beginning. The gym was just the opening move. The station was where the real game would be played. And I needed to be ready for whatever Howard James was about to throw at me. The ride to the precinct was short, but the silence inside the cruiser stretched it into something that felt like a transatlantic flight. I sat in the back, the hard plastic seat digging into my spine, my gym bag clutched on my lap like a shield. I was not handcuffed. Officer O'Malley had made a point of that, a small concession to the fact that my alibi at the gym was rock solid, but I was not free. I was in that gray, terrifying liminal space known as investigative detention. As we pulled into the secure lot, the rookie officer turned in the passenger seat. He looked young, barely older than the interns I managed at my firm. "Ms. James," he said, and his voice had lost the aggressive edge it had when he first walked into the gym. "We have a flag on your file. It popped up when we ran your license in the car." A flag. The word hung in the stale air. "What kind of flag?" I asked. My voice was steady, but my pulse was hammering a frantic rhythm against the side of my neck. "Financial Crimes Enforcement Network," he said. "It is listed as pending verification. It is not a confirmed warrant, which is why you are not in cuffs, but it links your name and social security number to an active investigation regarding wire fraud." Wire fraud. The words did not make sense. I pay my taxes early. I have a credit score of 820. I track every receipt. But then, the logic clicked into place. This was not about what I had done. This was about what had been filed. "That is part of the report my sister filed, isn't it?" I asked. "She didn't just say I threatened her. She said I was stealing." The rookie nodded. "It looks like she, or someone, uploaded a supplementary document to the initial complaint. It triggered an automatic system hold." I looked out the window at the brick wall of the station. This was the second layer of the trap. The gym scene was the hook, the loud public spectacle to get the police involved. This financial flag was the line and sinker. It was designed to keep me here, stuck in a room, answering questions while the clock ticked. When we walked inside, the atmosphere hit me like a physical weight. Police stations do not feel like places of justice. They feel like places of processing. The air was cold and smelled of floor wax and stale coffee. The lighting was that aggressive, humming fluorescent white that makes everyone look sick and guilty. I stopped at the intake desk. Officer O'Malley was beside me. "I am keeping my phone," I said. It was not a question. O'Malley looked at me. "Usually, we take personal effects. I am here voluntarily to clear up a false report," I said, pitching my voice to be heard by the desk sergeant. A heavy-set man who was watching me with bored suspicion. "I am not under arrest. I have not been charged. My phone contains the evidence of my location and my communications. If you take it, you are separating me from my defense." O'Malley hesitated. He knew I was right. Without a warrant or an arrest, he was on shaky ground seizing property, especially after the gym video had already poked holes in the primary accusation. "Fine," O'Malley said. "Keep it in your pocket. Do not use it to record inside the station." I slid the phone into my leggings pocket. It felt heavy, a brick of digital reassurance against my thigh. They did not put me in a cell. They put me in a waiting area. A small room with 3 chairs bolted to the floor and a table that looked like it had been chewed on by nervous dogs. The door was open, but an officer stood just outside. It was a soft interrogation room, the kind they use for witnesses or people they haven't quite figured out how to charge yet. I sat down. I did not slouch. I sat with my back straight, my hands folded on the table. I needed to look like a CEO, not a suspect. A few minutes passed. The desk officer, the heavy-set man, walked by the door. He paused and looked at me. He held a clipboard. "James," he said. "Holly A. James. My middle name is Elizabeth." I said. He looked at the clipboard, then back at me. His eyes narrowed. He was looking for the lie. He was looking for the crack in the veneer. "The system has you listed as Holly A. James on the cross-reference," he said, "also known as Holly Chen." I stared at him. "I am not Holly Chen." I said, "I have never been Holly Chen." He shrugged, a heavy movement of his shoulders. "Aliases are common in fraud cases," he muttered, mostly to himself, and walked away. My stomach turned over. Holly Chen. That was a specific detail, a specific error. It wasn't a typo. It was an insertion. Officer O'Malley entered the room a moment later. He pulled out a metal chair and sat opposite me. The metal legs scraped against the linoleum, a screeching sound that made my teeth ache. He placed a notepad on the table. "Okay, Ms. James," he said, "let's do this by the numbers. We need to untangle the mess your sister made." He clicked a ballpoint pen. "Have you ever been arrested?" "No." I said, "Have you ever been the subject of a restraining order?" "No." Have you ever been named in a civil suit regarding financial impropriety? No. He looked at his notes. We have a hit from a jurisdiction in Nevada. He said, a complaint filed 3 years ago against a Holly James for check kiting. I have never been to Nevada. I said, I have lived in this state my entire life. O'Malley nodded. He looked tired. Here's the thing. Holly, he said, using my first name for the first time. It felt like a tactic to lower my guard. The report filed yesterday, the one your sister filed, includes a social security number and a date of birth that matches yours. But it also includes a reference number to that Nevada case. I leaned forward. So, someone took an old, unrelated case against a woman who shares my first and last name. And they manually added it to the file to make me look like a repeat offender? O'Malley stopped writing. He looked at me. He was a detective. He knew how coincidence worked, and he knew how machinery worked. It is possible, he said slowly. He tapped the pen on the table. Does your family know your social security number? He asked. Yes, I said. My father set up my first bank accounts. He has copies of my birth certificate. He has everything. Does your family know your current address and workplace information? Yes. O'Malley sighed. He picked up his radio and keyed the mic. Dispatch. Can you run a visual verification on that Nevada warrant? Case number 4492 Alpha. Get me the physical description of the subject. We waited. The silence in the room was thick. I could hear the hum of the vending machine down the hall. I could hear the distant ringing of telephones. I checked my internal clock. It was now 7 o'clock in the morning. I was supposed to be at my desk at 8. I had a meeting at 9 with the partners regarding the restructuring of the firm's assets. It was a meeting I could not miss. If I wasn't there to sign off on the liquidity transfer, the deal would stall. The realization hit me so hard I almost gasped. The time. The report was filed at 6:14 in the evening yesterday. The police came for me at 6 in the morning today. They knew I would be at the gym. They knew the process would take hours. This wasn't about embarrassment. This wasn't about ruining my reputation at the gym. This was about removing me from the board. They needed me physically detained. They needed me away from my computer and my phone for the window of time between 8 and 10 in the morning. The radio on O'Malley's shoulder crackled to life. Unit 4. Dispatch. Nevada subject is listed as 5'2", African American. Date of birth. March 3rd, 1990. I looked at O'Malley. I am 5'8", Caucasian, and I was born in July. I said. O'Malley stared at the radio. So the person who filed the report? He said, speaking slowly as he put the pieces together, explicitly linked your personal data to an unrelated criminal record to ensure we would flag you as a flight risk or a repeat offender. He looked up at me. His eyes were different now. The suspicion was gone, replaced by a dawning realization of the scope of the manipulation. This is not a domestic dispute, he said. This is malicious prosecution. I nodded. It is a delay tactic, officer, and it is working. Every minute I sit in this room is a minute they are winning. O'Malley stood up. I need to talk to my supervisor. He said, you sit tight. Do not leave this room. He walked out, leaving the door slightly ajar. I sat there, alone in the fluorescent glare. I felt a cold anger settling in my chest. It was a clean, sharp anger. My father, Howard James, had orchestrated this. Tessa was the instrument, the loud, messy distraction. But the precision of the data stuffing, that was Howard. He knew how systems worked. He knew that a pending verification flag was stickier than a simple accusation. It required phone calls. It required cross-referencing. It required time. And time was the one thing he was stealing from me. I reached into my pocket and touched my phone. I wanted to check my email. I wanted to check the bank accounts. But I knew if I pulled it out now, the officer outside the door might confiscate it. I had to wait. From down the hallway, a sound drifted toward me. It was a voice I knew better than my own. I am telling you, I am scared for my life. It was Tessa. She was in another room, likely down the corridor in the victim interview section. She screams at me. She throws things. You do not know what she is like behind closed doors." Her voice was high, frantic, pitching up into that hysterical register she used when she wanted to drown out logic. She was still performing. She was still trying to sell the lie, even after the gym footage had gutted her story. But there was something else in her voice, a desperation. She wasn't just acting anymore. She was stalling. She was trying to keep the officers engaged, keep them writing, keep them listening to her so they wouldn't come back to me. She was the noise. I was the silence. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, visualizing the layout of my office, the secure server logins, the dual authentication keys I kept in my safe. If they were keeping me here, it meant they were making a move there. I opened my eyes. The fluorescent lights hummed. The trap was not the police station. The trap was the assumption that I would play by the rules while they burned the rule book. I stood up and walked to the doorframe. The guard looked at me. "I need to use the restroom," I said. He pointed down the hall. "Right there. 2 minutes." I walked into the hallway. Tessa's voice got louder. "She threatened to kill me. She said she would burn the house down." I walked past the open door of the interview room where she was sitting. She didn't see me. She was leaning forward, clutching a tissue, her eyes fixed on a female officer who looked exhausted. I saw Tessa's phone sitting on the table in front of her. The screen was lit up. It wasn't showing a text message. It was showing a script. A notes app was open, with bullet points. Mention the Nevada case. Cry when they ask about Dad. Keep them talking until 10 a.m. I didn't stop. I didn't storm in. I walked past, into the restroom, and locked the door. I had seen what I needed to see. The timeline wasn't just airtight. It was weaponized. And I had about an hour before my life was dismantled remotely. I looked at myself in the mirror. The fluorescent light was unflattering, showing the dark circles under my eyes and the lack of makeup. I looked tired. I looked like a victim. I turned on the cold water and splashed my face. "No," I whispered to the reflection. "Not today." I dried my face with a rough paper towel. I wasn't going to wait for O'Malley to figure it out. I had to speed up the clock. I had to force the officers to see not just the lie, but the mechanic behind the lie. I walked back out into the hallway. O'Malley was coming out of his supervisor's office. He looked grim. "Ms. James," he said, "we are clearing the flag. The Nevada jurisdiction confirmed the subject is in custody in Reno. It is physically impossible for it to be you." I nodded. "Officer," I said, "before we finish this, there is something you need to hear." I gestured toward the room where Tessa was still spiraling. "You have the audio of the 911 call, don't you?" I asked. "The one she made yesterday?" "Yes," he said. "It is attached to the digital file." "Play it," I said, "and listen to the background noise." O'Malley looked at me, then at the room where my sister was weeping. "Why?" he asked. "Because," I said, looking him dead in the eye, "you will hear the director giving the actor her lines." Officer O'Malley did not take me back to the interrogation room. He stood in the hallway, the bustling nerve center of the station moving around us like a river around a stone. He held a digital recorder in his hand, a small black device that looked innocuous, but held the power to dismantle the reality my sister had carefully constructed. The rookie officer leaned in, plugging a pair of wired headphones into the jack and holding one ear cup out to O'Malley, keeping the other for himself. I stood there, watching their faces. I did not need to hear the audio again to know what was on it. I had lived through enough of Tessa's performances to know the cadence, the pitch, and the specific breathless quality she adopted when she wanted to be saved. O'Malley pressed play. I watched his eyes. At first, they were neutral, focused on the technical act of listening. Then, his brow furrowed. He tilted his head slightly to the left, straining to hear something beneath the primary track. The rookie tapped the screen of the tablet he was holding, adjusting the equalizer levels on the digital file. He was isolating the frequency. "Can you boost the low end?" O'Malley asked quietly. The rookie slid a finger across the glass. "There," the rookie said. "Right there." At the 12-second mark, O'Malley rewound. He pressed play again. This time, he unplugged the headphones and turned the volume up on the device's internal speaker. He wanted me to hear it, He wanted to see my reaction. The audio was tinny, scratching against the air of the hallway. "Please, send someone." Tessa's voice came through. It was polished. It was too polished. Most people calling 911 are incoherent. They stutter, they scream, they breathe in jagged, panicked gasps. Tessa sounded like she was narrating an audiobook about a woman in danger. Her diction was crisp. Her urgency was modulated perfectly for dramatic effect. "I am afraid she's going to hurt me." Tessa's voice continued. "She is in the house. She is screaming at me." Then there was a pause, a silence that lasted exactly 2 seconds. And in that silence, beneath the static of the cellular connection, a second voice emerged. It was lower. It was close to the microphone, as if the person was standing right next to Tessa, leaning over her shoulder. It was a murmur, but the isolation software had stripped away the fuzz, leaving the words naked and undeniable. "Say she threatened you." It was a command. Calm, directive. And then, instantly, with zero hesitation, Tessa's voice returned to the recording. "She threatened me. She just said she was going to kill me." She repeated the instruction word for word. She did not stumble. She did not ask, "What?" She took the direction like an actor taking a line reading from a director and delivering it with maximum emotional impact. O'Malley pressed pause. The silence in the hallway was sudden and violent. He looked at me. His face was no longer the face of a police officer dealing with a domestic squabble. It was the face of a detective who had just found the smoking gun. That was not a conversation, the rookie said, looking up from his tablet. That was coaching. O'Malley turned to me. He stepped closer, invading my personal space just enough to make the question intimate and heavy. "Ms. James," he asked, "do you recognize that second voice?" I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. Recognize it? That voice had narrated my entire childhood. That voice had told me I was not smart enough for law school. That voice had told me I was too aggressive, too cold, too unlovable. That voice was the architect of every insecurity I had spent 20 years trying to bury under muscle and career success. It was Howard James. It was my father. But I did not say his name. If I said, "It is my dad right now," in this hallway, it would look like retaliation. It would look like I was just throwing names out to deflect the blame. I needed to be smarter than that. I needed to be surgical. "Officer," I said, keeping my voice low and devoid of any tremble, before I identify the individual on that recording. "I have a request." O'Malley blinked. "A request?" "I want that audio file preserved as evidence." I said, "I want it locked into the chain of custody immediately. I want the metadata secured so it cannot be deleted or altered." O'Malley studied me. He was expecting me to be emotional. He was expecting me to scream, "That is my father! He is doing this to me." He was expecting the daughter, the victim. Instead, he got the strategist. He saw the shift in his eyes. He realized in that moment that I was not playing the same game as Tessa. I was not looking for sympathy. I was building a case. "Done," O'Malley said. "It is already logged on the central server. It is not going anywhere." He waited. "Now," he said, "who is the male voice?" I took a breath. "That is Howard James." I said, "My father. And if you cross-reference the device ownership of the phone that made the call, I suspect you will find it is registered to his account, or that he was in the immediate vicinity of the geolocation ping." The rookie typed something into his tablet. "1 minute," the rookie said. He tapped a few keys. "The reporting number is on a family plan." The rookie confirmed. "Primary account holder is Howard James." O'Malley nodded slowly. "So," he said, "we have the father coaching the sister to file a false report against the other sister." He looked at the door of the interview room where Tessa was sitting. "This just went from a misdemeanor to a conspiracy," O'Malley said. He turned to the rookie. "Come with me." We walked down the hall. I stayed a few paces back, following their lead but keeping my distance. I wanted to see this. I needed to see this. O'Malley pushed open the door to the interview room. Tessa was sitting there, her phone in her hand, her thumb hovering over the screen. She looked up. her face arranging itself into a mask of tragic hope. "Did you arrest her?" Tessa asked, her voice trembling. "Is she in a cell? I do not feel safe until she is locked up." O'Malley did not sit down. He walked straight to the table and stood over her. His shadow fell across her, blocking the fluorescent light. "Ms. James," he said, "I need your phone." Tessa froze. The mask slipped, just for a second, revealing the panic underneath. "What?" she asked. "Why? We need to preserve the device as evidence," O'Malley said. Tessa clutched the phone tighter. Her knuckles turned white. She pulled it against her chest, curling her body around it like a child protecting a toy. "No," she said. "This is my private phone. You cannot take it. It has my photos. It has my messages." O'Malley held out his hand. His palm was open, expectant. "We just listened to the 911 call. Ms. James," he said, "we heard the third party instructing you on what to say. We have reason to believe this device contains evidence of the solicitation of a false police report." Tessa's eyes went wide. She looked from O'Malley to the rookie, and then she saw me standing in the doorway. Her eyes locked onto mine. There was no sadness there. There was only pure, distilled venom. "She is lying," Tessa screamed. "She edited the audio. She is good with computers. She faked it." O'Malley did not flinch. The audio came from the dispatch server. "Ms. James, it was recorded on our end. She did not touch it. Hand over the phone. Privacy." Tessa shrieked. She stood up, backing into the corner of the room. "I have rights. You are violating my privacy. I am the victim." O'Malley took a step forward. His voice dropped to that level of calm that is terrifying because it implies absolute control. "Privacy does not cover evidence in a knowingly false report," he said. He kept his hand out. "If you do not hand it over voluntarily," he continued, "I will seize it incident to a criminal investigation. And if you attempt to delete anything right now, I will charge you with destruction of evidence. Do you understand?" Tessa looked at the phone. I knew exactly what was on it. The script, the text messages from Dad, the timeline they had worked out, the notes she had been reading from. She looked at O'Malley. She realized the wall of blue uniform was not there to protect her anymore. It was there to process her. Her face crumpled. But it wasn't the fake crumble of the gym. This was the real, ugly collapse of a narcissist who has lost control of the narrative. "I was scared," she wailed. Tears finally spilled out. Hot and fast. "I was so scared. I did not know what to do. I just did what I was told. I felt threatened." She was pivoting. I watched her from the doorway. It was fascinating, in a morbid way. When the facts, the timestamps, the audio, the geolocation, failed her. She immediately switched to feelings. I was scared. I was confused. She was trying to move the goalpost from "did this happen" to "how did I feel about it?" Feelings are slippery. You cannot subpoena a feeling. You cannot prove a feeling as false in a court of law. It is the last refuge of the liar. O'Malley was not buying it. "We are not taking a new story." "Ms. James," he said, his voice cutting through her sobbing, "we are taking your statement based on the facts. And right now, the facts say you lied to a 911 operator." He reached out and took the phone from her hand. Tessa let it go. She slumped back into the chair, burying her face in her hands. "Dad is going to kill you," she sobbed into her palms. It was unclear who she was talking to. Me? The police? Herself? O'Malley handed the phone to the rookie. "Bag it." He said, "Faraday bag. Blocks the signal so nobody can remote wipe it." The rookie nodded and pulled a metallic bag from his belt, slipping the phone inside and sealing it. O'Malley turned to me. "Ms. James," he said, "we have enough to hold her for questioning regarding the false report, but we are not done." He looked at me with a serious expression. "If your father is involved, and if they were willing to go to these lengths to get you detained, we need to know why. What is happening today that they needed you to miss?" I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 7:45 in the morning. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The audio recording was a victory. Yes, the phone seizure was a win. But it had taken 20 minutes. 20 minutes of distraction. While we were focusing on the drama in the hallway, while we were celebrating the capture of the pawn, the king was moving on the board. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I had forgotten I still had it. I had been so focused on getting Tessa's phone that I had neglected my own. I pulled it out. The screen was lit up with notifications. But they were not text messages. They were security alerts. Duo Mobile. Login request. Business banking. Gmail. New device. Sign-in detected near you. DocuSign. Document viewed by administrator. My blood ran cold. They knew Tessa was burning. They probably knew the moment she stopped texting back. Dad would have assumed the worst, so he initiated the second phase. "Officer," I said, and my voice sounded distant to my own ears. O'Malley looked at me. "What is it?" I held up my phone. The screen was scrolling with alerts, one after another, stacking up like a digital car crash. "They are not just trying to keep me here," I said. "They are trying to log in." The real theft had not happened at the gym. It was starting right now, in the cloud. While I stood in a police station hallway, O'Malley swore softly. "Check it," he said. "Check everything. Now." I unlocked my phone. The first notification was from my business bank. 3 failed login attempts. Password reset requested. Tessa's wailing in the background faded into white noise. The real battle wasn't against my sister's lies anymore. It was against a keypad and a timer, and I was already late. The screen of my phone was a waterfall of red banners and urgent white text. My thumb hovered over the glass, frozen for a microsecond by the sheer volume of the assault. It was not just one notification. It was a synchronized bombardment. Officer O'Malley stood next to me, watching my face lose whatever color it had left. "What is it?" he asked, his voice sharp. I did not answer him immediately. I was too busy reading the story that the notifications were telling me. Alert. New sign-in detected on MacBook Pro. Location. Las Vegas. Nevada via VPN. Alert. Password reset requested for admin account. Holly James Enterprises. Alert. Chase Commercial Banking. Verification code sent to email on file. Alert. ADP. Payroll portal. Multiple failed login attempts. They were hitting everything, and they were hitting it all at once. My stomach dropped. A sensation like missing a step on a staircase in the dark. The logic of the morning finally clicked into a terrifying, coherent picture. The gym confrontation, the police, the delay with the false middle name, the pending verification flag on the financial system. None of it was about getting me arrested. It was about getting me distracted. They knew they could not access my accounts while I was sitting at my desk with my laptop open. They knew I monitored the traffic. They knew I had biometric locks on everything that required my face or my fingerprint. So they engineered a scenario where I would be physically removed from my technology. They needed me in a police station, arguing about a restraining order. While someone else, someone who was not Tessa, went to work on my digital life. "This is a breach," I said, my voice tight. I tapped the first notification. It was a request for 2-factor authentication from my primary business banking portal. Someone had my password. They had typed it in correctly. The only thing stopping them from draining the operating capital of my firm was the 6-digit code currently glowing on my screen. "Deny." I whispered. I hit the red button. Immediately, another popped up. "Resend code?" "Deny." "Login attempt." "Backup email." "Deny." It was frantic. It was a digital siege. I felt a bead of sweat roll down my back. If I had been locked in a cell without my phone, if O'Malley had followed standard procedure and confiscated my property, they would be in by now. They would have bypassed the mobile prompts or used the unable to access device loop to reset the credentials. Tessa was watching me from the chair where she had slumped. She had stopped crying. She was watching me tap the screen with a look of genuine confusion that slowly morphed into something darker. "What are you doing?" she asked. Her voice was wet and thick, but the edge was back. "Why do you have your phone?" "They are supposed to take your phone." I looked up at her. The venom in her voice gave it away. She knew. She didn't know the technical details. Tessa thinks the cloud is an actual atmospheric phenomenon. But she knew the plan. You knew this was happening. I said, you kept me here so they could log in. Tessa scoffed, looking away, pulling her cardigan tighter around herself. I do not know what you are talking about. I am the victim here. Then she slipped. It was a small slip, a throwaway line muttered under her breath. But in the quiet hallway, it sounded like a confession. Whatever happens to your stupid company is not my problem, she said. I just wanted you to leave me alone. Not my problem. Not, I didn't do it. Not, what is happening. But, that specific part of the plan is not my responsibility. I turned to Officer O'Malley. I held the phone up so he could see the relentless stream of push notifications. Officer, I said, look at the timestamps. He leaned in. The first login attempt was at 7:45 in the morning. I said, exactly 2 minutes after you confiscated Tessa's phone. They waited for her signal to stop. When she went silent, they assumed I was in custody and they launched the attack. O'Malley looked at the screen. He saw the access denied banners stacking up. This is not a domestic dispute, I said, making sure my voice was loud enough for the rookie to hear. This is corporate espionage and attempted grand larceny. My sister created a diversion to facilitate a financial crime. O'Malley's face changed. The look of the patient mediator vanished. He looked at the rookie. Get financial crimes on the line, O'Malley ordered. Now, tell them we have an active cyber intrusion coordinated with a false police report. The rookie nodded and sprinted down the hall. O'Malley turned back to me. Can you stop it? He asked. I am trying, I said. But they are using a bot script. They are hammering the servers. If they guess one of my backup security questions, they can bypass the phone. I need to lock it down. I said, I need to freeze everything. Do it, O'Malley said. Do it right here. I am authorizing you to use the device for defense. I didn't need to be told twice. I switched apps. Moving from defense to scorched earth, I opened my banking app. I didn't try to change the password. That would take too long and they might intercept the reset email. Instead, I went to the security center. Lock all cards. Suspend online access. I hit the buttons. A warning popped up. This will require a branch visit to restore access. Good. I thought, if I have to walk into a bank to get my money, then nobody in Nevada can steal it. Confirmed. I moved to the payroll portal. This was more dangerous. If they got in here, they could redirect the employee salaries. They could steal the identities of my entire staff. I logged in. My hands were shaking, but I forced my fingers to be precise. User management. Revoke all sessions. I watched the active session count drop from 2 to 1. I had kicked them out, but I wasn't done. I took a screenshot of the session log before I closed it. It showed an IP address. It wasn't a residential IP. It was a commercial proxy, but it had a digital fingerprint. I preserved it. I opened my email admin console. This was the crown jewels. This was where the contracts lived. Alert. Multiple failed password attempts. I navigated to the security settings. I enabled lockout mode. It was a nuclear option I had installed for emergencies. It froze the entire domain. No emails in, no emails out. The business was dead in the water, but it was safe. I took a deep breath. The notifications stopped. The phone went quiet. I looked up. The hallway felt different. The air was charged with a new kind of tension. It wasn't the emotional heaviness of a family fight anymore. It was the sharp, metallic taste of a crime scene. A man in a cheap suit walked quickly down the hall. He had a badge clipped to his belt and looked like he hadn't slept in a week. This was the detective liaison. Ms. James? He asked. I nodded. I am Detective Miller. Financial crimes. The rookie filled me in. You are locking down? Done, I said. I froze the operating accounts and suspended the email domain. Good, he said. Now, do not delete anything. Do not clear your cache. Do not clear your history. We need the logs of the attack vectors. I held up my phone. I am screenshotting every notification. I said, I am capturing the timestamps. I opened my photo gallery and started scrolling through the evidence I had just generated. Detective, I said. The attack started at 7:45. My sister filed the report at 6:14 yesterday. The police arrived at my gym at 6:05 this morning. I looked at Tessa, who was now staring at the floor, refusing to make eye contact. The timing is not accidental, I said. I have a meeting at 9 o'clock this morning, a restructuring meeting. If I am not there, or if my accounts are compromised, the deal fails. The ownership reverts to the minority stakeholders. Detective Miller looked at me, then at Tessa. Who are the minority stakeholders? He asked. My father, I said. Howard James, and a silent partner he brought in last month. Miller let out a long, low whistle. Okay, Miller said. That gives us motive. That gives us intent. He turned to O'Malley. Keep the sister in custody. Miller said, if she walks, she tips them off that the breach failed. We need her phone to see who she was signaling. O'Malley nodded. I stood there, feeling the adrenaline begin to crash. My hands felt cold. I had stopped the immediate theft. But I knew this wasn't over. They hadn't just tried to break in, they had almost succeeded. I turned to O'Malley. Officer, I said, I need one more thing. Name it, he said. I need the paper trail from the gym. I said, I need a printed copy of the check-in log. I need a signed statement from the manager verifying the video footage. I need the names of the witnesses who saw Tessa point at me. O'Malley frowned. We can get that later. No, I said, I need it now. Because if they are attacking my bank accounts, they are probably trying to delete the gym records too. If that system is networked, and if they have a guy who can crack a payroll firewall, they can crack a gym membership database. I need physical copies. I insisted, before they get wiped. O'Malley stared at me. He realized I was right. In a world where everything is digital, the only thing you can trust is paper. He radioed the patrol car still at the scene. Unit 4. Go back inside the gym. Get hard copies of the logs. Have the manager sign them. Now. I leaned back against the wall. I felt a strange sense of calm settling over me. It wasn't relief. It was clarity. For years, I thought my family was just toxic. I thought they were jealous, petty, and emotionally immature. I thought the drama was just drama. But as I looked at my frozen bank accounts and my confiscated sister, I realized I had been wrong. This was not a family dysfunction. This was a business strategy. Tessa wasn't just the jealous sister. She was the distraction. The gym report wasn't the attack. It was the smoke bomb. And the fact that they were hitting my accounts right now, while I was standing in a police station, meant one terrifying thing. They were not afraid of getting caught. They were only afraid of me showing up. I checked the time. 8:15 in the morning. I had 45 minutes to get to my office. But even if I made it, I was walking into a building that might already be owned by someone else. The gym report was just step 1. The bank hack was step 2. I wondered what step 3 was. And then, as if on cue, the station doors at the far end of the hallway opened. The noise of the station seemed to drop away. A man walked in. He was wearing a beige trench coat and a look of carefully cultivated concern. He walked with the confidence of a man who donates to the Police Benevolent Fund. It was Howard James. He spotted Tessa first, and his face softened into a look of paternal worry. Then he saw me. His eyes didn't soften. They sharpened. He looked at me, then at my phone in my hand, and then at the detective standing next to me. He knew, in that split second, he knew the digital attack had failed. But he didn't stop walking. He didn't turn around. He walked straight toward us, his hand extended, a smile plastered on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Officer, he boomed, his voice echoing off the linoleum. Thank God you found them. I came as soon as I heard there was a misunderstanding. I gripped my phone tighter. Step 3 had just walked in the door. Howard James did not look like a man entering a police station to bail out a daughter accused of filing a false police report. He looked like the mayor arriving to cut a ribbon. He was wearing his negotiation suit, a charcoal Brooks Brothers number that cost more than my first car, and his face was arranged in a mask of benevolent confusion. I watched him walk down the hallway. His stride was confident, the heel of his loafers clicking against the linoleum with an authoritative rhythm. He didn't look at the wanted posters on the wall. He didn't look at the drunk tank. He looked straight at the cluster of officers surrounding us. Assessing the hierarchy in a single glance, the change in Tessa was immediate and pathetic. The moment she saw him, her spine collapsed. She slumped further into the plastic chair, letting out a breath that sounded like a deflating balloon. The panic that had been driving her hysteria evaporated, replaced by a sullen, childish relief. Her supervisor had arrived. Daddy was here to fix the mess she had made. Howard stopped 5 feet away from us. He didn't look at me. He looked directly at Officer O'Malley, extending a hand that was perfectly manicured. "Officers," he said. His voice was a rich baritone, warm and resonant, the kind of voice that convinces investors to sign checks they can't afford. "I am Howard James. I am the father. I apologize for not getting here sooner. The traffic on the interstate was a nightmare." He gestured vaguely toward Tessa, then toward me, waving his hand as if he were shooing away a fly. "I assume we can wrap this up now? This is clearly a family misunderstanding that got out of hand. You know how sisters are. High emotions, miscommunication." He chuckled, a low, men of the world sound that was meant to invite the officers into a conspiracy of dismissal. O'Malley did not chuckle. He did not shake the hand. He kept his arms crossed over his chest, his face unreadable. "Mr. James," O'Malley said, "we are not wrapping anything up. We are in the middle of an active investigation." Howard's smile didn't falter, but his eyes got colder. He dropped his hand. "Investigation?" he repeated, testing the word like it was sour milk. "Come now. Officer, Tessa called me in a panic. She was upset. Holly here." He finally looked at me. His gaze was heavy, disappointed. The look he used to give me when I got a B+ instead of an A. "Holly has been under a lot of stress lately," he said, turning back to the officers. "She has been working too hard. Sometimes she gets intense. She perceives threats where there are none. We have been trying to get her to see someone about it, but she is very stubborn." There it was, the classic Howard James maneuver. He didn't call me crazy. He didn't use the word unstable. He just painted a picture of a fragile, hysterical woman using words like stress and intense. He was handing the police a narrative. "Don't believe her. She is the problem. I am the reasonable patriarch trying to manage a difficult child." I felt a flash of heat in my chest, but I stamped it down. I didn't defend myself. I didn't say, "I am the CEO of a profitable firm." I stood perfectly still, letting his words hang in the air, waiting for the facts to cut them down. O'Malley looked at Howard for a long moment. "Mr. James," O'Malley said, "the investigation is not into your daughter Holly. It is into your daughter Tessa, and potentially others." Howard blinked. The mask slipped for a microsecond. "Tessa?" he asked. "Tessa is the victim. She filed the report. She filed a false report," O'Malley corrected. "We have video evidence proving Holly was nowhere near the alleged incident, and we have audio evidence suggesting the report was coached." Howard stiffened. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous tic I hadn't seen in years. "Coached? That is ridiculous. Tessa was scared. She called me. I told her to call the police. That is what any father would do." O'Malley reached into his pocket and pulled out the digital recorder. "We have the recording of the 911 call. Mr. James." He pressed play. Tessa's voice filled the small circle of the hallway, crisp and urgent. "I am afraid she is going to hurt me." Then the silence. Then the whisper. "Say she threatened you." Then Tessa repeating it. O'Malley stopped the playback. He looked at Howard. "Do you recognize that voice?" "Mr. James?" Howard didn't answer immediately. He stared at the recorder as if it were a bomb. His mind was racing. I could practically hear the gears grinding as he calculated the odds. If he denied it, he risked a forensic voice analysis. If he admitted it, he implicated himself in a crime. He opted for the middle ground, the gray area where he lived. "It is a scratchy recording," Howard said, waving a hand dismissively. "It could be anyone. It could be the television in the background. It could be a friend she was with." To assume that is me is a stretch. Officer, a very big stretch. His denial was smooth, but the pause before it had been deafening. The rookie officer, who had been standing quietly with his tablet, stepped forward. "Sir," the rookie said, "we checked the metadata of the report submission, the digital file that included the false allegations and the appended financial flags." Howard turned his head slowly to look at the young officer. He looked at him with disdain, like he was a waiter who had brought the wrong wine. "And?" Howard asked. "The report was submitted through an online portal account." The rookie said, "The account is registered to an email address, James, consulting@gmail.com. I watched Howard's jaw muscle jump. It was a tiny spasm, right near his ear. He clenched his teeth so hard I thought they might crack. That was his primary business email. He used it for everything. He was so arrogant, so sure of his own untouchability, that he hadn't even bothered to use a burner account to frame his own daughter. The rookie looked down at the screen. Furthermore, the device ID tag on the submission matches a tablet registered on the same Wi-Fi network as the reporting phone. "Your home network, sir." The silence that followed was absolute. The noise of the station faded away. It was just the four of us, standing in the cold fluorescent light of truth. Howard James had been caught, not by a clever trap, but by his own digital footprint. He looked at the officers. He looked at Tessa, who was staring at her shoes. He looked at me, and then he changed tactics. The concerned father mask vanished. The confused citizen mask vanished. He put on the weary realist. "Look," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Maybe I helped her with the paperwork. She is not good with forms. She was hysterical. She was crying. She told me Holly was threatening her. I believed her. I am her father. I just wanted to make sure the police took it seriously. If I added some details, it was only to ensure her safety. I was trying to protect my child." He spread his hands. "Is that a crime? Helping a scared girl file a report?" O'Malley stepped into Howard's personal space. He was 2 inches shorter than my father, but in that moment, he looked 10 feet tall. Helping someone file a knowingly false report is not harmless. "Mr. James," O'Malley said, "it is obstruction of justice. It is filing a false instrument. And when you attach financial flags to that report to freeze someone's assets, it starts to look a hell of a lot like fraud." Howard flinched. The word fraud hit him harder than anything else. Fraud was his language. Fraud was the thing he feared because it was the thing he understood best. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. There was no love in his eyes. There was no apology. There was only calculation. He was assessing the damage. He was trying to figure out if I could still be salvaged as an asset, or if I had to be destroyed as a liability. And in that look, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place for me. He didn't come here to save Tessa. He didn't care that Tessa was in custody. Tessa was expendable. She was a blunt instrument that had broken upon impact. He came here to control the narrative. He came here to see what the police knew, to see how much of the plan had been exposed. He came to see if he could smooth-talk the officers into deleting the audio or losing the file. He came to erase the evidence, not to help his family. I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to please him. I didn't feel the urge to explain myself. I just felt a cold, hard clarity. "Mr. James," O'Malley said, "I am going to need you to provide your identification, and then you are going to sit right there next to your daughter. We have some questions about that financial flag." Howard straightened his jacket. He tried to regain his composure, but the air of invincibility was gone. He looked smaller, older. "This is ridiculous," Howard muttered. "I will be calling my attorney." "You do that," O'Malley said. Howard walked over to the chair next to Tessa. He sat down stiffly. He didn't look at her. He pulled out his phone, the same phone that had likely coached her through the lie, and started dialing. I watched them. The 2 people who should have been my safe harbor, the 2 people who shared my blood, sitting there, side by side, united only by their failure to destroy me. I turned to Detective Miller. who was still holding my phone with the evidence of the cyber attack. "Detective," I said, "I want to file a formal complaint." Miller nodded. "Against your sister?" "Against both of them," I said, "and I want a protective order." O'Malley looked at me. He nodded. "We can do that," he said. But I knew a piece of paper wasn't enough. Howard James could talk his way around a piece of paper. I needed to beat him at his own game. I needed to stop playing defense. I looked at the clock. 8:35. I had 25 minutes before the meeting started. My accounts were frozen. My email was locked. My family was in police custody. But I was still standing. I turned to O'Malley. "Am I free to go?" I asked. O'Malley looked at Howard, then back at me. "You are free to go." "Ms. James, we have everything we need here." "Thank you," I said. I didn't say goodbye to my father. I didn't say goodbye to my sister. I turned my back on them. I walked toward the exit doors, my gym bag heavy on my shoulder. As I pushed the doors open, the sunlight hit me. It was blindingly bright. The city was waking up. The world was moving on. I walked to the curb and hailed a cab. I didn't have my car keys. They were still in my locker at the gym. But that didn't matter. I took my phone out of my pocket. I had one call to make. Not to a lawyer, not to a friend. I dialed the number of the one person Howard James was terrified of, the head of the audit committee. It was time to stop being the daughter. It was time to become the CEO. And I was going to show them exactly what happens when you try to erase someone who has been keeping the receipts for 30 years. I stood on the sidewalk outside the precinct for exactly 10 seconds. The morning air was cool, but my skin felt hot, tight with the residue of the last 2 hours. Inside that building, behind the heavy safety glass and the metal detectors, my father and sister were sitting in plastic chairs, likely spinning a new web of excuses to Officer O'Malley. For 20 years, I had played the role of the peacemaker. I had been the one to smooth things over, to absorb the insults, to pretend that Howard's manipulation was just tough love, and Tessa's cruelty was just sibling rivalry. I had spent my life trying to prove I was good enough to be a James. But as I watched a pigeon peck at a discarded cigarette butt near the curb, I made a decision that felt heavier than any deadlift I had ever pulled. I was done playing defense. I turned around and walked back toward the precinct doors, not to argue, not to scream, not to beg them to tell the truth. I walked back in to finalize the paperwork that would burn the bridge forever. I found Detective Miller near the intake desk. He looked up, surprised to see me return. "I forgot something," I said. My voice was flat. It lacked the tremor of the victim. "I need to sign the formal complaint for false reporting and harassment," I said, "and I want to sign the consent form for full evidence preservation on all my devices. I want it on the record that I am inviting the investigation, not hiding from it." Miller nodded slowly. He slid a clipboard across the counter. "This makes it criminal. Ms. James," he said quietly, "once you sign this, the state takes over. You cannot drop the charges just because your father calls you and apologizes." I picked up the pen. The ink was black. The paper was cheap. "He won't apologize," I said. I signed my name. Holly Elizabeth James. The loops of the letters looked sharp, aggressive. I handed the clipboard back. "Do not let them contact me," I said. "If they try to call me from the holding area, or if they try to pass a message through an officer, I want it added to the harassment file." "Understood," Miller said. I turned and walked out for the second time. This time, I didn't look back. I hailed a yellow cab at the corner. The interior smelled of pine air freshener and old vinyl. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver the address of my office building downtown. "Drive," I said, "and please, do not turn on the radio." As the cab merged into the morning traffic, I pulled my phone from my pocket. My hands were steady now. The adrenaline had metabolized into a cold, hard focus. Step 1. The money. I dialed the fraud department of my personal bank. I didn't use the automated system. I pressed 0 until I got a human being. "This is Holly James." I told the representative. I have reason to believe my identity has been compromised by family members with access to my personal data. I spent the next 15 minutes locking down my life. I placed a freeze on my credit with all 3 bureaus. I added a fraud flag to every account that bore my name. But that wasn't enough. Howard knew my mother's maiden name. He knew the name of my first pet. He knew the street I grew up on. The standard security questions were useless against a father who had designed the answers. I need to set a verbal passphrase. I said, "Nothing can be changed on this account. No transfers, no address changes, no password resets," without this phrase. "What would you like the phrase to be?" the agent asked. I looked out the window. We were passing a billboard for a vacation resort, promising peace and quiet. "Iron Sanctuary." I said. It was fitting. Step 2. The Cavalry. I hung up and scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I hadn't used in 4 years. It was listed simply as Elias, RMG, Redwood Meridian Group. They were a boutique consulting firm I had worked with during a hostile takeover at my previous job. They were quiet, professional, and terrifyingly efficient. They didn't have a website you could find on a standard search engine. They didn't have social media. They were the people you called when you needed to know who was leaking data from a locked room. Elias answered on the second ring. "Holly James," he said. His voice was like gravel wrapped in silk. "It has been a while. I need a forensic sweep, Elias." I said, "Immediate. I am currently under a coordinated attack. Social engineering, false police reporting, and a brute force attempt on my business credentials." I heard the sound of a keyboard clacking in the background. "Scope?" he asked. "Personal and professional." I said, "I have locked down the perimeter, but I need to know if they planted anything before today, and I need you to look at my father." "Howard?" Elias asked. He remembered. "Yes, I need to know who he has been talking to." "Consider it done," Elias said. "Send me the server logs you preserved. I will have a team at your office in 20 minutes. I hung up. Step 3. The loose end. I opened my banking app again, ignoring the red banners of the failed login attempts. I went to the notifications history. I needed to see that specific alert again, the one that had made my blood run cold in the police station. There it was. Alert. In-person profile update attempted. Branch location. 4th and Main. I stared at the screen. 4th and Main. That was not the branch near my office. That was the branch 3 blocks from my father's house in the suburbs. The timestamp on the alert was 8:30 this morning. I frowned. Howard was at the police station at 8:15. He walked in looking like he owned the place. He couldn't have been at the bank at 8:30, unless he wasn't alone. I tapped the message icon and sent a text to Detective Miller. "Detective," regarding the financial attempt, the alert referenced an in-person change request at the bank branch on 4th and Main at 8:30. Howard James was with you. Please request the security footage from that branch immediately. Someone else is wearing my face or using my credentials. I didn't wait for a reply. I knew Miller would see the implication. If Howard was the mastermind and Tessa was the distraction. There was a third player, a runner. The cab pulled up to my office building. It is a glass tower that reflects the sky, looking clean and impenetrable. I paid the driver $32.50, adding a generous tip because he had been silent, and stepped out. I didn't go up to my office immediately. I stood in the lobby and called my attorney. Sarah Vance. Sarah is a shark in a Chanel suit. We have been friends since law school, and she has been waiting for me to cut ties with my family for a decade. "Holly," she answered, "I heard you had an interesting morning." "You could say that." I said, walking toward the elevators, "I need you to set up a meeting." "With the police?" "No," I said, "with Howard's legal counsel and with the board of directors." Sarah paused. "Today?" "Tonight," I said, 7 o'clock. Tell them it is a business resolution session. Tell them I am ready to discuss the restructuring terms. Tell them I am shaken by the arrest, and I want to settle." "You want to settle?" Sarah asked, her voice skeptical. "Holly, you have them on a felony. I know," I said as the elevator doors slid open. "But they don't know that I know the full scope. I want them in a room. I want them to think they have won. I want them to bring the paperwork they intended to force me to sign. A containment room, Sarah said, catching on. Exactly. I said, make the call. I walked into my office suite. My assistant, David, looked up from his desk. He looked pale. Holly, he said, thank God. The system is locked. I can't access the email. The investors are calling. They said they received a message. I held up a hand. I know. David, I locked it. Who called? The Sterling Group, he said. And Mr. Henderson from the board. They are frantic. They said there is an emergency vote scheduled for tonight. I stopped walking. An emergency vote. I walked into my office and closed the door. I didn't sit down. I threw my bag on the couch and went straight to my private terminal. I bypassed the standard login and used the admin override I had set up years ago, the one that doesn't rely on the external server authentication. I pulled the internal access logs. I didn't look at the failed attempts from this morning. I looked back further. I looked at the activity from yesterday. I filtered by user, Howard James. He had read only access to certain files as a minority shareholder, but the logs showed he had been trying to access folders way above his clearance level. Projected access attempt. Bylaws. Section 4. Projected access attempt. CEO incapacity. Protocols. I felt a chill go through me that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. I opened the document he had been trying to view. Bylaws. Section 4. Emergency transfer of authority. I read the clause. In the event that the chief executive officer is detained, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to perform their duties for a period exceeding 6 hours during a critical transaction window, the board may, by a majority vote of the present members, appoint an interim acting manager with full signatory power. 6 hours. I looked at the timestamps again. Tessa filed the report at 6:14 in the evening yesterday. The police came for me at 6 in the morning today. If they had succeeded in keeping me at the station, if I hadn't had the gym footage, if I hadn't had the audio recording, I would have been processing until noon. 6 hours. And the critical transaction window? I searched the system for any documents created in the last 24 hours. I found one. It was a draft. It had been uploaded to a shared folder that only the board could see. Resolution 99. B. Emergency restructuring and asset liquidation. I opened it. It wasn't a restructuring. It was a sale. The document outlined a plan to sell the core assets of my company, the proprietary software, the client list, the patents, to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. The price was pennies on the dollar. And the buyer? H.J. Holdings Global. Howard James. He wasn't trying to steal a few $1,000s from my checking account. He was trying to steal my life's work. He wanted to force me out, sell the company to himself for nothing, and leave me with a criminal record and an empty bank account. And the meeting tonight? The emergency vote? It was scheduled for 8 o'clock in the evening. If I was in a cell, I couldn't vote. I couldn't object. I couldn't stop them. I sat back in my chair. The audacity of it was breathtaking. It was evil. Yes. But it was brilliant. He had weaponized the justice system to trigger a corporate loophole. I looked at the clock. It was 9:15 in the morning. I had the evidence. I had the police report. I had the logs. But if I waited for the legal system to catch up, the reputation damage would already be done. The investors were already nervous. They had heard rumors. I needed to stop the bleeding. And I needed to do it in a way that Howard couldn't spin. I opened a new email window. I didn't address it to Howard. I didn't address it to Tessa. I addressed it to the entire investor group. Every single partner, every single stakeholder, and I blind copied the board of directors. Subject: status update, operational continuity and security event. I typed. My fingers flew across the keys. I didn't use emotional language. I didn't use exclamation points. I used the cold, hard language of the boardroom. Dear partners, as of 9 o'clock this morning, Monday, February 2nd, I have successfully neutralized a coordinated external attempt to compromise the security protocols of James Enterprises. This attempt involved the falsification of legal instruments and the attempted unauthorized access of financial systems. Please be advised that all operational accounts are secure. No data has been lost. No assets have been transferred. Furthermore, be advised that any emergency motions regarding leadership transition based on rumors of my unavailability are unfounded and will be treated as hostile actions against the firm. I am at my desk. I am in control. And I will be present at the scheduled review tonight to discuss the future of our ownership structure. Regards, Holly James, CEO. I attached one file to the email. It wasn't the police report. It wasn't the audio of Tessa. It was a screenshot of the log showing Howard James attempting to access the CEO incapacity protocols the night before the police report was even filed. I hit send. It felt like pulling a trigger. It was a betrayal of the unwritten rule of families. You keep the secrets in the house. You don't air the dirty laundry to the people who sign the checks. But Howard had broken that rule first. He had brought the police into my gym. He had brought the law into our living room. I leaned back in my chair and watched the sent notification fade from the screen. I wasn't just safe. I was armed. The phone on my desk rang. It was the internal line. David's voice came through, sounding breathless. Holly, Mr. Henderson is on the line. He sounds furious. But not at you. Put him through, I said. I picked up the receiver. Holly? Henderson's voice boomed. He was the lead investor, a man who had zero tolerance for drama. What on earth is this attachment? Is this accurate? Did Howard try to trigger the incapacity clause? It is accurate. John, I said, my voice calm, steady, reasonable. And I have the metadata to prove it. There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence. Then, Henderson spoke. Cancel the vote tonight, he said. We are not voting on a restructuring. We are voting on a removal. I smiled. It was a small, cold smile. I think that is a wise decision. John, I said. I hung up the phone. I looked out the window at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Howard James was sitting in a police station, probably thinking he could still talk his way out of this. He probably thought he could charm O'Malley. He probably thought he could bully Tessa into taking the fall. He didn't know that I had just nuked his escape route, but I wasn't done. The alert about the bank branch still bothered me. In-person changes. Howard was with the police. Tessa was in custody. Who was the third person? Who was the runner? My computer pinged. It was an email from Elias at Redwood Meridian. Subject: Preliminary scan. Holly, we found something. The IP address that hit your payroll system isn't just a proxy. We traced the payment for the VPN service. It wasn't paid for by Howard. It was paid for by a corporate card registered to Consultant Services, LLC. I pulled the incorporation papers. The registered agent is a man named Marcus Dean. Does that name mean anything to you? I stared at the name, Marcus Dean. It didn't ring a bell. But then, Elias sent a second attachment, a photo from a social media profile. It was a man in his 30s, handsome, slick, wearing a suit that cost too much. And standing next to him, holding a glass of champagne, smiling that performance smile, was Tessa. The caption read, "New beginnings with my favorite business partner." The date on the photo was 3 weeks ago. I felt a click in my brain. The consultant, the boyfriend, the one who told her she deserved more. Howard hadn't just used Tessa. He had used Tessa's desperation for love to plant a snake in the grass. I picked up my phone and texted Miller again. The third man is Marcus Dean. He is Tessa's boyfriend. He is likely the one at the bank, and he is the one who wrote the script. The game wasn't just legal anymore, it was personal, and I was about to introduce Marcus Dean to the consequences of dating a James. The influx of evidence did not come in a trickle. It came like a dam breaking, a sudden, violent rush of data that flooded my inbox and Detective Miller's secure server simultaneously. I sat at my desk, my phone on speaker, Elias from the security firm on one line and the detective on the other. It was a conference call of damnation. Detective Miller spoke first. His voice was no longer that of a weary civil servant. It was sharp, energized by the clarity of the case. Ms. James, we have the subpoena return on the metadata from the reporting portal. Miller said, "It is definitive. The IP address used to file the police report against you resolves directly to the residential fiber optic account at the home of Howard James." I closed my eyes for a second. Hearing it confirmed was different from suspecting it. "And the device?" I asked. "A tablet," Miller confirmed. "Specifically, an iPad Pro registered to the Apple ID of Howard James. The device identifier matches the one that was logged on his home network at 6:14 in the evening yesterday. So he didn't just help her," I said, staring at the city skyline through my office window. "He filed it." Miller cleared his throat. "We believe he typed it." Miller said, "We recovered the draft notes from your sister's phone. The tech team cracked the passcode about 10 minutes ago." I leaned forward. This was new. "What was on the phone?" I asked. "It wasn't a diary. Ms. James, it was a script." Miller sent a screenshot to my secure email. I opened it. It was a note created 3 days ago. The title of the note was simply "The Plan." I read the text. It was chilling in its banality. Step 1. Wait for H to go to the gym. She is always there at 6. Step 2. Call 911. Sound breathless. Do not mention the money yet. Step 3. Use the phrase, "Fear for my safety." It triggers an automatic dispatch. Step 4. Dad will handle the paperwork online while you are on the phone. It was a screenplay. My sister, who couldn't remember to pay her car insurance, had rehearsed her victimization line by line. There were even stage directions in parentheses. "Cry here. Mention she is unstable." "She did not write this." I said, "The syntax is too clean." "We know." Miller said, "We cross-referenced the vocabulary. It matches the email style of the third party we identified. Marcus Dean." Elias chimed in from the other line. "Speaking of Mr. Dean," Elias said, his voice crackling slightly over the encrypted connection. "I have the footage you requested from the bank branch on 4th and Main." He pushed the video file to my screen. I clicked play. The timestamp was 8:30 in the morning. Today, while I was standing in the police station hallway, and while Howard was walking in to play the concerned father, a man walked into the bank branch near my father's house. It was Marcus Dean. He was wearing a suit, looking confident. He walked up to the teller. The audio on the bank camera was muffled. "But clear enough. I am here to update the authorized user list for the James Family Trust," Marcus said to the teller. He slid a folder across the counter. "Mr. Howard James has authorized me to act as a signatory due to a family emergency involving his daughter. He wasn't trying to rob the bank with a gun. He was trying to rob it with a permission slip." The teller hesitated. She looked at the paperwork. "I need to call Mr. James to verify." The teller said. Marcus smiled. A winning, predatory smile. "Of course. He is currently at the police precinct dealing with the situation. He might be hard to reach, but here is his signed affidavit." Elias paused the video. "Zoom in on the document," Elias said. The image pixelated, then sharpened. It was a power of attorney form. It had Howard's signature at the bottom. The ink looked fresh. "He signed it this morning," I whispered, "before he came to get me. He sent Marcus to the bank while he came to the station to keep me occupied." I said, "It was a pincer movement. One team on the ground, one team on the money. But the assault wasn't just financial and legal, it was corporate." My computer pinged with a high-priority notification from the internal HR system. It was marked confidential. I opened it. It was an incident report filed anonymously through the Employee Ethics Hotline. Subject: Workplace Safety Concern Regarding CEO. Holly James. I read the body of the complaint. Ms. James has been exhibiting erratic, aggressive behavior consistent with substance abuse or mental health crisis. Several employees are afraid for their physical safety. We request an immediate suspension of her executive powers pending a psychological evaluation. The timestamp on the complaint? 6:30 in the evening yesterday, 15 minutes after Tessa filed the police report. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. They didn't just want me arrested. They wanted me unemployable. They were building a parallel narrative in the corporate record to match the police record. If the board saw a police report for threats and an HR report for erratic behavior, they wouldn't just fire me. They would commit me. Who filed this? I asked Elias. Can you trace the anonymous tip? Already did. Elias said. It wasn't an employee. The IP address traces back to a coffee shop across the street from your sister's apartment. And the MAC address of the laptop? Let me guess. I said, Marcus Dean. Correct. Elias said. He filed the HR complaint, then went to dinner with your sister to celebrate. I looked at the collage of evidence on my screens, the police report, the bank video, the HR complaint. It was a total war on my existence, but the final nail in the coffin came from the gym itself. My office phone rang again. It was the gym manager, looking to apologize, looking to save his own skin after allowing the police to interrogate a premium member. Ms. James, the manager said, his voice shaky. We found something else on the cameras. I thought you should know before I give it to the police. What is it? I asked. We reviewed the exterior footage. He said, the parking lot cameras. He sent the file. I watched the grainy footage. It was from 5:45 in the morning today, 20 minutes before the police arrived. A car pulled into the far corner of the lot. A black sedan. I knew that car. It was Howard's Mercedes. He sat there for 10 minutes. The engine was running. The brake lights were glowing red in the pre-dawn darkness. Then, the passenger door opened. Tessa stepped out. She wasn't crying. She was checking her makeup in the side mirror. She adjusted her cardigan. She practiced her sad face. Then Howard leaned across the seat. He said something to her. She nodded, closed the door, and walked toward the gym entrance to wait for the police. Howard didn't drive away immediately. He sat there. He waited until the police cruisers turned into the lot with their lights flashing. He watched them enter the building. He watched the trap snap shut. And then, only when he was sure I was cornered, did he drive away. He wasn't at home sleeping. He was the field commander. He dropped his soldier off at the front lines and watched from the safety of his luxury car. I felt a wave of nausea, followed by a surge of pure, white-hot clarity. He lied to the police about being at home. That destroys his alibi. That destroys his credibility. I forwarded the footage to Detective Miller. Miller, I said, Howard James was at the scene. He is an accessory before the fact. I see it. Miller said. His tone was grim. We are updating the warrant. But there was one last layer to peel back. The social layer. I opened my personal social media. I hadn't looked at it all morning. My direct messages were full, not with support, but with carefully worded concern. Holly. I heard what happened. Are you okay? Maybe you should take a break. Holly. Tessa told me you guys were fighting. Please don't do anything rash. Holly. Is it true about the gambling debt? Gambling debt? I scrolled back. Tessa had been messaging our mutual friends, cousins, old college roommates, neighbors, for weeks. Holly is in trouble. Holly is losing it. I think she is on something. She owes money to bad people. She had been preceding the ground. She had been planting the idea that I was unstable and desperate for money long before she filed the report. So when the news hit that I was arrested for fraud, nobody would be surprised. They would nod and say, "Oh, yes." Tessa told us she was spiraling. It wasn't just a theft. It was a character assassination. They wanted to rewrite reality. They wanted to create a world where Holly James was the villain, the addict, the failure, so that when they stripped me of my company and my dignity, everyone would believe I deserved it. The twist wasn't that they wanted the money. The twist was that they wanted my life. They wanted to wear my skin, take my achievements, and leave me in a cell, wondering where I went wrong. I looked at the photo of Marcus and Tessa again, the consultant and the victim. They had underestimated one thing. They thought I was the isolated, work-obsessed sister who would crumble under pressure. They thought I would cry. They thought I would beg Howard to fix it. They didn't know that I treated my life like a business. And in business, you don't get emotional when someone tries to hostile take over your assets. You audit them. I picked up the phone and dialed Sarah. My attorney. Sarah. I said, I want you to draft a new document for the meeting tonight. What kind of document? She asked. A confession. I said, for whom? For all of them. I said, I'm going to walk into that boardroom with enough evidence to send my entire family to federal prison, and I am going to give them a choice. I looked at the clock. It was noon. I had 7 hours to prepare the kill shot. The evidence was a mountain. The metadata, the script, the bank footage, the HR log, the parking lot video, the social media whispers. It was all there. A perfect, airtight cage. And tonight, I was going to lock them inside it. The hearing took place in a courtroom that smelled of lemon polish and old decisions. It was not a criminal trial. Not yet. This was the emergency hearing for the temporary restraining order and the injunction against corporate interference that I had filed mere hours ago. Because of the credible threat to business assets and the documented false police report, my attorney, Sarah Vance, had managed to get us in front of a judge by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Tessa sat on the plaintiff's side. Though she was technically the respondent today, she had changed her clothes. Gone were the yoga pants and the oversized cardigan from the gym. She was now wearing a modest black dress and a string of pearls that I recognized as belonging to our grandmother. She looked small. She looked fragile. She looked like a woman who had been terrorized by a hulking, violent sibling. She was performing for an audience of one, Judge Sterling, a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a face that gave away absolutely nothing. I sat next to Sarah. I wore my charcoal business suit. I did not slouch. I did not look at my family. I looked at the seal of the state on the wall behind the judge. I treated the bench like a boardroom. Tessa's attorney, a man Howard had kept on retainer for years for zoning issues, began his opening. He did not talk about facts. He talked about feelings. Your Honor, he said, his voice dripping with synthetic empathy. We are here because of a family tragedy. Ms. Tessa James is terrified of her sister. Holly James has a history of aggression. She is a bodybuilder. She lifts heavy weights. She is physically imposing. My client simply called the police because she felt unsafe. Now, in a cruel twist, her abuser is using her corporate wealth to silence her. Tessa dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She sniffled. It was a perfect, delicate sound. I watched the judge. He didn't look moved. He looked bored. He was looking at the stack of affidavits in front of him. Sarah stood up. She didn't make a speech. She didn't use adjectives. Your Honor, Sarah said, we are not here to discuss my client's workout routine. We are here to discuss a documented pattern of harassment, filing false police reports, and attempted corporate theft. We have prepared a timeline of events based on objective data. She handed a binder to the bailiff. Tessa's lawyer tried to object. This is hearsay. This is speculation. Sarah ignored him. Tab 1. Sarah said, the gym incident. The respondent claims she was threatened by my client at her home at 6:10 in the evening. Sarah pressed a button on the AV console. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. It was the gym footage. There I was. 6:07 in the evening, checking in. There I was. 6:10 in the evening, deadlifting. There I was. 6:14 in the evening, resting between sets. Sarah paused the video. At the exact moment the respondent told a 911 operator she was being cornered in her kitchen. My client was 5 miles away, under high-definition surveillance, in a room full of witnesses. This is not a memory error, Your Honor. This is a physical impossibility. Tessa shifted in her seat. She whispered something to her lawyer. Sarah didn't stop. Tab 2, she said. The intent. She played the audio. The courtroom was silent, so the tinny sound of the recording seemed to echo off the wood paneling. Say she threatened you. The male voice was low, commanding, unmistakable to anyone who knew the James family, and then Tessa's voice, repeating the line like a parrot. Judge Sterling looked up from his papers. He looked at Tessa. Is that your voice on the recording? Ms. James? The judge asked. Tessa stood up. She looked panic-stricken. I was confused, she blurted out. I was having a panic attack. My dad was just trying to help me calm down. Sit down. Ms. James, the judge said. His tone was not kind. Howard stood up then. He couldn't help himself. He was in the gallery. Technically just an observer, but Howard James does not know how to be an observer in any room. Your Honor, Howard said, using his boardroom authority voice, if I may, I am the father. This is all a misunderstanding. My daughters have always had a volatile relationship. I was simply trying to de-escalate a situation. I may have used poor phrasing, but my intent was to protect my child. Sarah turned to look at him. She didn't smile. She looked like a hunter who had just watched the prey step into the snare. Mr. James, Sarah said, since you have identified yourself, let us look at tab 3. She clicked the remote. The screen changed. It showed a map, a digital trail. This is the metadata from the police report filed against my client, Sarah said. It was submitted from a device registered to Howard James. It was submitted using the Wi-Fi network at the residence of Howard James. She clicked again. And this, she said, is security footage from the gym parking lot at 5:45 this morning. The video played, the black Mercedes, Howard and Tessa, the coaching session in the front seat, the wait, the watch. Howard James claims he was at home de-escalating a crisis. Sarah said, in reality, he drove the respondent to the scene of the alleged confrontation, waited for the police to arrive, and watched from his car to ensure the arrest took place. He is not a concerned father. Your Honor, he is the getaway driver. Howard's face turned a color I had never seen before. It was a gray, ashy pallor. He sat down slowly, as if his legs had suddenly stopped working. He realized, perhaps for the first time in decades, that he could not talk his way out of a timestamp. Tessa tried to pivot. She stood up again, ignoring her lawyer's hand on her arm. I did not know he was going to do that, she cried. I just wanted her to stop bullying me. I did not know about the money. The money. She had said the quiet part out loud. Sarah nodded. Thank you for bringing up the money. Ms. James, Sarah said, tab 4. The screen changed again. This time, it showed a series of bank transfers. We have identified a third party involved in this scheme, Sarah said. A Mr. Marcus Dean. This individual attempted to access my client's business accounts using a fraudulent power of attorney this morning. A photo of Marcus Dean appeared on the screen. Tessa gasped. She actually gasped. We traced the funding for Mr. Dean's activities. Sarah continued. He is not a random hacker. He is a paid consultant. And the payments to his shell company, Consultant Services, LLC, originated from a trust fund account. Sarah looked at Tessa. The account belongs to Tessa James. The courtroom was deadly silent. Tessa looked at the screen. She looked at the transfers. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. She had paid her boyfriend to rob me. She had financed her own rescue. I did not. Tessa stammered. Marcus told me it was for legal fees. He said he was hiring a private investigator to protect me. She turned to Howard. You told me Marcus was helping us. She screamed at our father. You said he was handling the security. Howard refused to look at her. He stared straight ahead. His jaw locked. The alliance was crumbling. The rats were turning on each other before the ship had even fully sunk. But Sarah had one final blow, the one that would seal the business protection order. Tab 5, Sarah said, the corporate sabotage. She put up a copy of an email. This email was sent to the entire investor group of James Enterprises at 6:30 yesterday evening. Sarah said, that is exactly 16 minutes after the police report was filed. I read the text on the screen. Urgent. CEO Holly James to be taken into custody regarding federal fraud charges. Immediate leadership transition recommended. The sender was anonymous, but the signature block was unmistakable. Concerned shareholders. We subpoenaed the server logs. Sarah said, this email was not sent by a shareholder. It was sent from the same IP address as the police report. Howard James. He had tried to fire me before I was even arrested. He had timed the email to hit the investors' inboxes, just as the police were supposed to be dragging me out of the gym. He wanted the stock price to tank so he could buy it back cheap. Sarah turned to the judge. Your Honor, this was not a domestic dispute. This was a hostile corporate takeover disguised as a family intervention. The respondents weaponized the police force, the court system, and the banking system to remove the CEO of a solvent company so they could liquidate her assets. Judge Sterling took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked at Howard James with an expression of profound disgust. Mr. James, the judge said, in my 20 years on the bench, I have seen families do terrible things to each other, but I have never seen a father attempt to bankrupt his daughter with this level of premeditated malice. He picked up his gavel. I am granting the temporary restraining order, effective immediately. Mr. James, Mrs. Tessa James, and Mr. Marcus Dean are to have no contact with Holly James, directly or indirectly. You are to stay 500 yards away from her home, her place of business, and her gym. He turned to the clerk. I am also issuing an emergency injunction freezing all assets related to the James Family Trust and IHJ holdings pending a forensic audit. Any attempt to move funds from these accounts will be considered a violation of a court order and will result in immediate incarceration. Howard stood up. Your Honor, you cannot freeze the trust. That is my operating capital. Sit down. Sir? The bailiff barked, stepping forward. The judge looked at me. Ms. James, he said, I am also signing an order for the preservation of all electronic evidence. The police investigation regarding the false reporting and the attempted fraud will proceed separate from this court. But as of this moment, your family cannot touch you or your company. Thank you. Your Honor. I said. The gavel banged. It was a sharp, final sound. Tessa was sobbing now. Real, ugly sobs of a woman who realizes the credit card has finally been declined. Howard was furiously texting on his phone, likely trying to move money before the banks received the court order. I stood up. I gathered my files. I didn't look at them. I walked out of the courtroom, Sarah by my side. We did it, Sarah said quietly as we entered the hallway. They are locked out. I nodded, but I didn't feel triumphant. I felt a buzzing in my pocket. It was my phone. I pulled it out. It was a text from Elias, my security consultant. Holly, good news and bad news. Good news. The judge's order just hit the bank. Howard is frozen. Bad news. We found a backdoor in the server. It wasn't Marcus Dean. Someone else logged in 10 minutes ago, using an admin key that was created 5 years ago. I stopped walking. 5 years ago. That was before I was CEO. That was when I was just the VP of operations. Who? I typed back. Elias's reply came 3 seconds later. The key is registered to H. James Legacy. It wasn't Howard. Howard didn't know how to code. Howard didn't know what an admin key was. It is a scheduled task. Elias wrote. It is a dead man's switch. It is set to execute if the primary user is locked out. My blood ran cold. Howard knew he might get caught. He knew I might win in court, so he had planted a bomb in the system years ago, a failsafe. What does the task do? I asked. It deletes everything. Elias replied. The client database, the proprietary algorithms, the backups, it wipes the company clean. I looked at the time, 2:45 in the afternoon. When does it execute? I typed. It is on a countdown. Elias wrote. It triggers in 1 hour. I looked at Sarah. We didn't win. I said, we just triggered the self-destruct sequence. Sarah's eyes went wide. What? Howard set a trap inside the server. I said, starting to run toward the elevators. If he gets locked out, the company erases itself. He would rather burn it to the ground than let me keep it. I hit the elevator button. I have 60 minutes to find a piece of code that has been hiding for 5 years. I said, or there won't be a company to save. The doors opened. I stepped in. The courtroom victory felt 1,000,000 miles away. The real trial was just starting, and this time, the judge was a line of code that didn't care about the truth. The cab ride back to the office was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I sat in the back seat, laptop open, watching a countdown timer that Elias had mirrored to my screen. 42 minutes. That was how long I had before the dead man's switch wiped the central servers of James Enterprises. When I burst into my office, the room was already transformed into a war room. David, my assistant, was pale, standing by the window. Elias was there in person. He had sent a field team ahead, typing furiously on a terminal he had hooked directly into the mainframe. "We have to cut the hard line," Elias said without looking up. "The script is embedded in the kernel. If we try to stop it with software, it accelerates. It thinks we are intruders. Then pull the plug," I said, throwing my bag onto the couch. "If we pull the plug, we corrupt the database," Elias said. "We lose the transaction logs. We lose the proof of what Howard did." I stood there, looking at the screen. The timer ticked down. 38 minutes. Howard had designed this perfectly. If I caught him, if I locked him out, the system would destroy itself. It was the ultimate scorched earth policy. If I can't have it, nobody can. I closed my eyes and thought about my father. I thought about how he operated. He wasn't a coder. He wasn't a genius. He was a creature of habit. He used the same 4-digit PIN for everything. He used the same password variations for 30 years. The admin key. I said, "The one registered to H. James Legacy." Elias looked at me. "What about it?" "It requires a password to abort the sequence." I said, "What is the hint?" Elias tapped a key. The prompt came up on the screen. Question. Where it all began. I felt a cold, bitter laugh rise in my chest. It was so sentimental, so nauseatingly Howard. "Try the garage," I said. Elias typed it. "Access denied." "Try first dollar," I said. "Access denied." The timer hit 30 minutes. I paced the room, where it all began. Howard loved to tell the story of how he built the family wealth. He told it at every Christmas party. He told it to every investor, but the story changed depending on the audience. Sometimes it was a garage. Sometimes it was a loan from his father. But there was one place he actually started, the place he never talked about, the place where he met his first partner, the one he screwed over to get his initial capital. "Try the Red Horse," I said. Elias stopped typing. "The bar?" "It wasn't just a bar." I said, "It was where he signed his first contract. It was where he learned that you could steal a company with a signature." Elias typed the words. "The Red Horse." The screen flashed green. Sequence aborted. The countdown stopped at 28 minutes. I let out a breath that felt like it had been held for a decade. The room was silent. We hadn't just saved the data. We had saved the evidence. "Now," I said, turning to Elias, "lock him out, permanently, and send the logs of that kill switch to Detective Miller. That is attempted destruction of evidence." The crisis was over. But the reckoning was just beginning. Over the next 48 hours, the legal machinery that Howard had tried to weaponize against me turned around and crushed him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie scene with shouting and guns. It was a slow, grinding suffocation by paperwork and facts. I filed for a permanent injunction to remove Tessa and Howard from all access to accounts and systems. With the police report, the audio of the coaching, and the logs of the server wipe attempt, the judge granted it ex parte. They were stripped of their keys, their passwords, and their power before they even left the police precinct. The financial crimes investigation moved forward with terrifying speed. Once Detective Miller had the bank footage of Marcus Dean trying to use a fraudulent power of attorney, the narrative of a family misunderstanding evaporated. You don't accidentally forge a signature to access a corporate account while the CEO is being detained. That is racketeering. That is conspiracy. Howard tried to hold on to his spoofing defense for exactly one day. He claimed his phone had been hacked, that someone else had filed the report from his IP address. But data is stubborn. The carrier records confirmed that his phone, his tablet, and his car's GPS were all active and communicating with the local towers at the exact moments the crimes occurred. His spoofing story died on contact with reality. When faced with the possibility of a federal perjury charge on top of the fraud charges, his high-priced lawyer advised him to stop talking. For the first time in his life, Howard James was silent. But it was Tessa who provided the most pathetic spectacle. I didn't see it personally. I adhered strictly to the no-contact order. But Detective Miller told me about it when they finally broke down the timeline for her. When they showed her that Marcus Dean had flipped on them to reduce his own liability, she didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She raged. She screamed that it wasn't fair. She screamed that I had everything. She screamed that I thought I was better than them just because I worked 18 hours a day. It wasn't about the money for her. The $5,000 she paid Marcus was nothing. It was about control. It was about humiliation. She wanted to see me in handcuffs. She wanted to see me small. She wanted to break the one thing I had that she could never buy. My discipline, Marcus Dean, the consultant, the boyfriend, the man she thought loved her, gave the police everything. He handed over the emails. He handed over the text messages where Howard instructed him on exactly which documents to target while I was busy with the police. He confirmed that the plan was never to just scare me. The plan was to keep me detained until noon so they could push the sale through the emergency board vote. The betrayal broke Tessa, but it didn't make her sorry. It just made her hateful. And that hate was now recorded in a sworn deposition, with the conspirators neutralized, the business stabilized almost overnight. I sent the evidence packet to the board of directors and the investor group. I didn't send a long explanation. I sent the police report, the forensic audit of the attempted server wipe, and the confession from Marcus Dean. The response was immediate. The investors who had been ready to oust me based on an anonymous email were suddenly sending fruit baskets and apology notes. They backed off Tessa completely. They realized that backing the concerned family meant backing a criminal enterprise. I didn't beg for their trust. I didn't say, "I told you so." I accepted their apologies with a polite nod and went back to work. I let the numbers speak for me. The stock price rebounded, the restructuring deal, the real one, not the fraudulent sale Howard had planned, went through on my terms. A week later, I was sitting in my office with Elias, doing a final sweep of the internal files. We were looking for any other traps Howard might have left behind. We found one last document. It wasn't a trap. It was a receipt. It was a transfer of ownership draft. It was dated 3 weeks before the gym incident. I stared at the date, January 12th. That was the day I had dinner with Howard, the day he told me he was proud of me, the day he bought me a bottle of wine and asked how the business was going. He wasn't asking because he cared. He was asking to see if the valuation was high enough to sell. This wasn't an impulsive act of jealousy from a sister who felt left out. This wasn't a father making a bad decision in the heat of the moment to protect his child. This was a scheduled takeover. He had been planning this for a month. He had lined up the buyer. He had lined up the fake police report. He had lined up Marcus Dean. He had looked me in the eye, smiled, and toasted to my success, all while drafting the document that would steal it from me. That document was the final piece of closure I needed. It killed the last tiny, lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, they loved me in their own twisted way. They didn't love me. I was just an asset they hadn't liquidated yet. I printed the document. I framed it. I hung it on the wall of my home office, right next to my university degree. A reminder, a trophy. The next morning, at 5 o'clock, I walked into the gym. The air was cold. The smell of chalk and iron greeted me like an old friend. The front desk staff, the same ones who had watched the police march me out, looked up. They looked nervous. "Good morning, Ms. James," Sarah said, her voice tentative. "Good morning, Sarah," I said. I scanned my fob. The beep was loud in the quiet room. I walked to the back, to the lifting platforms. The squat rack was empty. I put my bag down. I put on my lifting belt. I wrapped my hands around the bar. The music was loud. My mind was quiet. There were no police. There was no sister screaming lies. There was no father waiting in the parking lot to watch me fall. There was just the weight. I took a deep breath, braced my core, and lifted. The bar rose, heavy, honest, real. I didn't win because I was stronger than them. I didn't win because I was smarter. I won because I kept the receipts. I won because when they tried to drag me into the mud of emotion and drama, I stood on the concrete foundation of facts. I finished my set. I racked the weight. The clang of the metal echoed through the gym. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked tired. Yes, but I looked free. I had chosen my ending. No revenge theatrics, no screaming matches, just charges filed, boundaries set with the force of law, and zero direct contact. I picked up my water bottle and took a drink. My life didn't belong to the loudest liar anymore. It belonged to me. And as I loaded the next plate onto the bar, I realized that the best revenge wasn't destroying them. It was simply continuing to exist, successful and unbothered, in a world they could no longer touch. Thank you so much for listening to this story on Lily Revenge Stories. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening while working out at the gym like Holly? Or maybe during your commute? Let me know in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and hit that hype button to help more people hear how Holly took back control.